Hello, my name is Charlie Briggs and I'm going to walk you through what single oar sculling or stern sculling is and why it's so useful, how to do it. So single oar sculling is where you use an oar, ideally conventionally shaped like this, symmetrical, and on the back of the boat you need a rowlock or a sculling notch, which is a U-shaped cutout in the transom. A lot of traditional boats have it, but either setup will do. So why scull? Why learn it? Well, there are many advantages to single oar sculling. First is you can see where you're going, especially when doing it with one hand. The other major advantage is you narrow the width you take up on the water. Another thing is you can just adjust your position, so physically it gives you a break just to mix things up a bit. Another thing with sculling is that you get a tremendous amount of control. You might not think so at first, but once you get good at it, you get exact precision control over where you place the boat. It's just really useful to be able to do sculling with one hand compared to rowing. You can do other things like grab a drink, eat something, fix something on the boat, like arrange a rope or move something. And another thing is reclaiming space inside the boat, because you can choose where you position yourself in the boat while you scull, and the oars going off the back, it doesn't get in the way of people or cargo in the boat, so that's the big one. What single oar sculling is turning the oar into a propeller as opposed to a paddle, like it is when rowing, if you think about a paddle boat versus a propeller craft. The idea of single oar sculling is to trace a figure of 8 motion through the water, so that the angle of attack of the blade is mirrored on each side of the stroke, and this creates resultant forward thrust. A lot of the technique is in the wrist. The way to learn sculling really is to just practice. At first, just moving the paddle left and right, or moving the oar left and right. Don't bother with a figure of 8 up and down motion, just left and right. Get used to the idea of what the blade is doing to the water. That is, it's deflecting the water upwards, and because of the angle of the oar, partially backwards. That results in the component of forward thrust on the boat. Try to let your hand trail behind your wrist, and what that'll do is it'll automatically feather the oar blade. So I'm kind of leading with my wrist joint, and the hand trails behind, which automatically rotates the oar. And so if you initially just do the left and right motion, try to build in that up and down component, so you end up with that figure of 8. As the boat picks up speed, you will have the oar sort of come out of the rowlock if you screw it up, which can be quite frustrating, but stick at it. And if you're not getting it, just stop and think through the movement again, and maybe just do it out of the water. So this is the motion you're looking for. It's more efficient to do quicker, shorter strokes rather than longer sweeping ones. So you can see that if you do it super quick like that, just with a little bit of wrist movement, you've got good speed, and this is going upstream. It's much easier to do sculling with 2 hands, so you can experiment. It's also better to be standing up, but on a boat this size, which is 8 feet, better just to be sitting down. You want a longer oar if possible, just like you want longer oars really for good rowing. It's the same with sculling. So this boat's 2 meters 50 and this oar is about 2 meters 25. So the kind of length you're after. Could go even longer than that. Don't have the blade too deep in the water, because then that's just adding unnecessary drag from the part of the oar that's not the blade. Ideally you just want the blade in the water, because that's pure thrust, no drag. The way you do turns when single oar sculling is there are two ways to do it, which you normally combine. You increase pitch on one side relative to a finer pitch on the other. In this case it'll cause a turn to my left, because as you can see it'll create more resistance on one side of the stroke than the other. That imbalance will cause a turn. For example, it's quite an exaggerated turn, but that shows the principle. And when you want to turn on the spot, you can just row your way around like this. The other element to getting a turn going is just by increasing the vigor of one half of the stroke compared to the other. And due to the effect of, due to the nature of drag, the more you force it, the more resistance there will be. So just by pushing more vigorously on one side, even though I haven't really changed the pitch much, I am turning to the left there. Sculling is not as powerful as rowing, so for a given amount of energy you will not propel the boat as fast. It's because, as you can see, if you imagine the thrust from the blade being perpendicular to the blade, most of the thrust is lost upwards, which is achieving nothing more than thrusting the stern down into the water. There's only a slight component which is thrusting the boat forwards. But if you want to go fast, if you grab the oar with two hands, face backwards, and ideally stand, and put all your force into it, you can really propel the boat fast, very nearly as fast as rowing. So that option is always there. Okay, now I'm going to teach you how to go in reverse, and with that you'll learn draw-sculling. So to go in reverse, and I'm trying to do this with one hand, you want to do draw-sculling. So that's where the oar or paddle, if you're doing it on a canoe, kayak or SUP, is out the Rowlock, completely free. Okay. As you can see, it's using the same principle of varying the angle of attack of the blade in each stroke, but in this case it's in a different sense, so that it's actually pulling. That's why it's called draw-sculling. It's like you're clawing your way forward, grabbing the water and pulling yourself towards it. Right now you can see I got the oar wedged in my neck. There are various ways you can achieve it with one hand, but anyway, normally you'd want to do this two hands. But you can see that I'm going against the wind here, but I'm making progress in reverse. Draw-sculling is great because you can actually use it as a way to maneuver the boat all directions, including sideways, drawing off the side, and if you have it mostly towards the bow, you're actually drawing yourself forwards, almost conventionally. So yeah, draw-sculling, another weapon in the arsenal. It's actually easier to learn, I'd argue, than stern sculling. So you might actually want to start with draw-sculling, just to get you used to the concept of feathering the blade to achieve thrust, and then move on to your stern sculling. So I hope you like that tutorial. Best of luck. Definitely worth learning. It's a really important part of boat craft in general. It'll make you much more confident when you're out in the water if you know how to scull. If you lose an oar as well, you've always got that backup of being able to at least draw-scull your way to safety. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you've got any more questions, just go ahead and ask. And see you in the next video. Bye bye.